Whenever you're ready.
Okay. I think this was the shirt I was wearing in those other episodes, so now kind of back into my favorite farm shirt. But so we had an epic failure this morning on this thing. I was getting ready to go down and burn some cattails at the bottom of the field, and I was going to take this off, and got it down on the gauge wheels and started to lower it, and the quick hit slipped by the top mast, and this thing just folded up. And the water barrel, literally, I'll show you a picture of it, the water barrel creamed forward, failed seats on both sides, bent all this up. If anybody would have been sitting in this table, or in these chairs, dead, instantly. So Holland, you guys need to put some kind of advisory for people to be aware of the fact that this hinge, or this pin, right? This pin is what the thing rotates and floats on. When you pick it up, that angle bracket carries it. But if you've got enough weight behind that so this pivot can rotate, there's nothing to stop it. This thing will rotate straight through, and that's what it did. So I'm going to put some stops on here just as a safety. I'm going to keep enough for float, but there needs to be some stops on here. So anytime you sell one of these things on a toolbar, you need to make people aware of the fact that this thing rotates through. Now, I knew that, but early this morning I had just forgotten about it, so I dropped the thing down and wham! Water tank feeds this trip valve, and when this thing rotates around, of course, it hits this cam follower and it raises up and pours water into the plants. These are on wires and they are adjustable. So what we're trying to do is dial in the location of these ends so that when the spade releases the plant, it gets a nice shot of water. What's been happening is that these hoses hang up on the plastic. The plastic lifts ever so slightly as the spades open and start to retract out of the plastic. The plastic draws up, and these hoses catch on that elevated plastic and they start to drag. So I've raised these up a little bit, and we're going to see how well that works. But this is taking a few rows to get debugged. The balance of the plants, we started to do pretty good. I mean, this is our first 5 rows, or short rows. They survived the night and they look like they're going to do pretty good. So took us 2 rows. We tore up a lot of plastic. These last 3 rows, though, actually went pretty well. What we discovered too is these root balls are too light. There's not enough mass to drop through. There's just enough friction on the sides of the spades and the plant itself that it won't actually drop through. It just sort of binds up in there. Kind of an interesting phenomenon. So we're not planting dry plants. We're using those to plant in the holes where we have a failure. So we'll keep this going. This is day 1 of planting hemp in Rob's field, and we ended up rototilling the bed. There was a lot of weeds that were bearing, and some of it was kind of cloddy. One of the things that happened is we got a little bit off center, and so we were striping with our plastic right where the tire pack was, and so some of these plants didn't work too good, but that little planter was pretty hardy. It punched down pretty good. But one of the other things that was happening is because we just used 1 single row of T-tape and not 2, every once in a while the planters were hitting the T-tape and because the ground was kind of hard underneath some of those things. We were getting some big cuts in the T-tape, so we used a bunch of unions to get that. But I think we got a good field. This thing hasn't been farmed in about 15 years. Lots of sheep, lots of cattle, lots of organic matter out there. I think this is going to be a really good field, but we just got next 3 or 4 days are going to be kind of critical. We got to get this ground that's real dry. We got to get it wet. So we're soaking it with the T-tape lines now. We're going 5 at a time. 5 sets, and we soak it about an hour, and then we kind of work back, and then we plant the next 5, because that's about all we can get out of this 3/4 line. There's about 300-foot runs. So I'm psyched. I think we're going to get some good CBD out of this field.
One week later.
We got this field, and then the gazania bed, and we'll be done. We'll be on to phase 2, 3.
What's phase 2?
Phase 2 is getting the plants out of the ground. Phase 3 is going to be stripping and getting processed.
And that thing?
That's where they'll dry, yeah, that's the building. Why, hello, welcome to Farming with Ian. No, welcome. We're over at F2. I'm Ian Dory with Foco Organics, and behind me we have a hemp field. We call this F2 farm, location number 2, F2 for short, real catchy. This is Vegeta, thank you. We finished planting and everything's looking good. Ignore these extra T-tape lines down here. These were just extras, miscalculation type stuff. But it's all Cherry Uno. All Cherry Uno planted in the ground, and we just hooked up our last circuit for water. It's not on the automatic timer. It's not on the automatic timer or anything like that, but I'm just on a manual cycle for 30 minutes. Now the plants are in the ground. We're going to give them, a good bit of water. I'm going to go get some nutrients right now, some OMRI certified Dramatic 1 formula. It's really good stuff. Fish smells horrible, but plants love it for whatever reason. I don't know why they like it. It's awful. It tastes awful. Ugh. But yeah, that's kind of it. And we finally planted this field. The plants that went in just now are actually slightly older than the ones we put into the ground previously, so they're a little bit taller, so we're going to just be experimenting with that. And yeah, everything's going smooth and we're loving life. Let's go! Woo! We just finished up our last field. This is kind of an experimental field that we're going to be doing. But I think we put about 300 plants in. And what we're going to do with this particular field is we're going to be running a fertilizer injector with some experimental fertilizer. And on the end row here, we're going to be running just water. So we have a control strip, if you will. So we had 2 or 3 different types of plastic out because we were experimenting with the types of plastic and how they worked. One was more of a fabric based. We didn't do a very good job of laying it down. We rototilled it and it was real loose, and we did a good job mulching it, but it was too loose. We needed time for it to set. So as we were planting, we were pulling up some of the plastic. But super tall plants, but the little planter did a good job. We planted 3 different fields. All 3 different fields had different characteristics, but we got it all in. It's almost 9,000 plants, and so far only like 18 of them have died. So I think we're going on week 2, so we'll call that a victory. But you guys that do this in large scale, hats off.